Hello, and as part of one of our last interventions regarding the Media Studies A-level coursework, and we're going to look back at our planning stage. This lesson then, or this intervention, is based around the aims and intentions part of the brief. I'm going back to your original ideas for your product and just tightening up some of the word choices you've used at that point. Let's remind ourselves then of the element of the statement of aims and intentions that you would pass in along with all the other elements of your coursework. Learners will be required to complete a brief outline of their aims and intentions for a cross-media production. What that means is your website, your DVD covers, your theatrical posters, etc. all form part of a cross-media production that you've compiled and created yourself ready to be submitted as coursework. It is the aims intentions then that will go alongside this product to tell the examiner exactly how you applied the theoretical framework, as it says at the middle there in red. By theoretical framework, that is about the theorists and the study that you've used in order to create your coursework. How did you use the codes that we've talked about in lessons? How did you use the theory that you've actually come to enjoy and appreciate when looking at other people's products? In this case, you've used the theory to create your own product. So how much of Steve Neal's genre theory or Barthes' semiotic theory did you actually plug into your media product itself? As you can also see, the whole write-up needs about 500 words. Really, what this is all about is you creating an essay that analyses your own aims and intentions before you created your product. What we're doing now, though, is just looking back at the product itself and just tightening up the wording to make sure it is sounding like an academic media studies essay rather than just a sequence of ideas. Now let's look at the front sheet. You can see in front of you here, it asks you a series of questions that you'd like to explore through your write-up, and it also reminds you of the word count of 500 words. Remember, this is a statement of intention. What were you planning on creating? What codes, what conventions of the genre were you trying to use within your body of work, within your cross-media production? Now, when we first looked at this, we looked at this quite basic example taken from one of the Media Studies revision guides. This was originally just a basic rundown of how you're going to tackle some of the key points in your essay. The genre that you're going to use, the target audience you've got to fulfill, the application media language you are choosing to do. And the example is a really basic example. It covers all the bases and begins to say in kind of basic terms how you'd actually use the different elements of the course when creating your coursework.
Now that we've broken down the brief,
now let's take a look at part of the brief itself and start asking ourselves some questions about how this brief would be hit. The detailed example you can see on the left is just an example of one brief that was set in this year, but also the same rules would apply as you move forward into your own brief for whatever year you're taking your A-level. So we should be thinking about how you explore the genre and use its conventions and codes, but take it perhaps in a new direction. You should be thinking about how you use the production company's aims and ethos and the knowledge you have about the production company to create your own product. You also need to think about your audience. How did different details you used? How did it link to your audience? How were you trying to create effects for the particular demographic you were being asked to create for? This is then the mark scheme section that links to the aims and intentions. I've included the top band here, so this would be for your B to A star grade, and it's worth 10 marks of the total 60. You can see there the 3 bullet points that you'll be being asked to meet to hit that kind of level. You'll need to clearly describe how you ensure your product links to the target audience and the company that produces it. You'll need to explore how you'll use a range of codes and conventions to employ the genre of your work or your cross-media production. This will also include representation of characters and how you're planning on presenting genre, class, and demographic. So not genre, gender, class, and demographic. And lastly, you'll need to explain how you use your course theories to deepen the quality of the work and utilise many of that subject-specific terminology to support your ideas. If you do all that, you have yourself an A-grade aims and intentions in front of you. Now let's begin to look at some examples. Now this is the aims intentions taken from an E-grade piece of coursework. That isn't to say that the example here is an E-grade, but coupled together with the actual production, that is the grade this coursework portfolio got. For my cross-media production, I will aim to use media language that conveys my chosen genre of horror by using SPFX makeup, using dark tones and colours, and the idea of gore. These are often found in the horror genre. Notice in that opening section then, it simply lists off things the student's going to do. It doesn't really explain why or the effect she's trying to create. In order to show a range of representation, good use of keyword there, representation, I'll make the main character a young female to fit in with my target audience of 18 to 25. I would like the film to be like other horror movies such as Malevolent and Strangements 1998. I'll link this to Steve Neal's genre theory. Okay, good drop in of the genre theory there, because it's important for films to include stereotypical features of horror movies, such as the mouth being sewn up to stop the screaming, and the use of blood and suspense to keep the audience interested. This is why I've chosen a vulnerable female character rather than a male character who could fight and make and show less pain. I'll also feature a male character who plays the killer's role, because it is stereotypical for male character to be the killer and can be shown throughout. I will also target my intended audience by featuring teasers on what's happening without giving much away. The cross-media production is going to demonstrate digital convergence by including images as well as recordings in the form of a director's interview to make it more professional. In order for my production to conform to industry context, I will take a variety of photos for my film that convey codes and conventions of the horror genre, such as a mouth being sewn up and blood coming from the mouth and nose, because it links back to conventions of horror with blood and danger. I will make my photos more mysterious by editing them to make them look darker and creepy, creating a scary atmosphere found in the horror genre. I cater my cross-media production for independent audience, meaning there will not be much money to spend, to allow me to be more creative with my funds. A good social media campaign should help me appeal to my audience who are likely to use the internet to access it. I'll engage my audience through the website, including information about characters and who they relate to, interesting images of the scenes, the movie, and pictures of the characters in danger and injured. Also, the website will be accessible computer or phone, which makes more people be able to access it. There you can see then, it's not a particularly well written piece. It covers the bases, but doesn't really say why. It doesn't really tell me options that she took in order to create her product, what she decided she might do, and other ideas she might have. And it doesn't really explain what effect she's actually trying to create. It simply labels or describes the pictures she's used without really analysing or evaluating what effect those might have to get the best result from her product. So as I said, part of an E-grade coursework folder. Moving forward, this is from a C-grade coursework folder. The aims and intentions from a C. Deciding on the genre of horror, I wish to use certain types of media language to adapt codes and conventions to fit this genre. Okay, very generic opening sentence. Doesn't really say what codes or what conventions, so far not many marks gained. I'll use low-key lighting. Okay, this is better. Begin to look at individual techniques that are going to be used, preferably mainly candlelit, which will create a hermeneutic code to provide mystery of an atmosphere of Gothic horror. So that's much better, saying what code is being used and what effect that code might have on the audience. It then references another film, The Others, showing then that this person has grabbed other texts as inspiration. And then he's saying, this is reinforced by lack of facial features, which will connote enigma, providing something that will draw the audience of 18 to 34 film fans who will want to uncover the mystery. Good, so he's linking exactly to the audience itself, noting that from the brief, and he's also beginning to think about other features and how features link together to create an overall effect. This will also be representative of blind faith in God that my main character will have, embedding religious themes and representation of people of faith, a topic that's not widely covered throughout the genre. I'll also frequently use symbolic code for religion with the main thematic element. My main image will be a scene from the film which depicts a ritual, a twisted act of worship demonstrating what obsessive nature of religion. So this is now deliberately saying what effect is being created and why they're using certain specific types of media language to gain a particular effect for the target audience and genre that this candidate's been given. So far I think the brief here, or the aims and intentions here, actually is a lot stronger than the C grade the end product actually got. There are lots of ideas here. It's clearly explaining some of them in a meaningful way, and it's beginning to think about the different range of techniques that could be used within the cross-media production that could gather together to create an overall effect. Certainly reading through the rest of it, you can see it takes account for a lack of budget, but then it also goes on to say what the candidate hopes to achieve. Diverse representation is being mentioned, and it goes on to religion and the different religious imagery that might be used. Notice it also links to Ofcom, the regulators, saying that actually certain things would not be able to be used, and that takes account then of the context, the industrial context that this piece of coursework is being created in. So a lot stronger answer here. I think this is probably more like a B or even an A grade brief, an A grade aims and intentions, which seems to have been slightly let down by the product perhaps itself. On to the next one then. This one, as you can see, I've already color coded. This one was taken from an A grade coursework folder, and actually glancing at it, it's much more prescriptive perhaps than the last example. So as aims and intentions, this may not actually be as good. But what I've decided to do here is give you a couple of sentence starters from it to help you create your own aims and intentions based on this. You can see it's just over the 500 word count, 522 to be exact, but it does take on board all the examiner's questions, all the questions stated on the top of the aims and intentions, and clearly explains and elaborates on the effects being used with lots of examples of films that have been used for inspiration. The Final Girl, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Cabin in the Woods, all being referenced here. And we also have a link once again to digital convergence, which is one of the words the exam board used at the top of their own aims and intentions. And then it talks about industry context again. And that I think is the tough bit. I think that's what really breaks apart the idea of getting a B or an A or an A star. When you start talking about the production company you're actually working for, the brief does stipulate which company you should be working for, be it the BBC, Warner Brothers, or another production company. And you need to really do a bit of research into those and think, well, what do I know about that company? What kind of films they normally create? What are the aims of that company? What's the ethos of that company? And how does my product link to that? To make sure then the industry context has informed the products that you've actually created. Once again, you can see a fairly straightforward section there. You've got two longer paragraphs, and then you've got the aims at the bottom, or conclusion at the bottom, which links to the website itself and social media networking, and how those little details of the DVD cover or theatrical poster come together to create a whole media product if it became a real one later down the line. Okay, let's just take a second to recap at this point. We know there's a lot of things you need to include, a lot of things you need to think about, and the level of language you use in this aims and intentions document needs to be quite high. You need then 450 to 550 words only. You need to clearly explain how you'll use media language or techniques in your product. What products have been used to help your product reach a certain level of quality. Remember to name them. What codes and semiotics did you use? How do these link to your audience? How and why did you construct your representations? What company are you creating your product for? And how does your product reflect the values they have? Remember, you are a media student, so make your aims and intentions sound like it. You've written lots of essays before based on analysing other people's products. Think of this as being similar, except that you're analysing your own ambitions for what you want to create. Thank you very much then for listening to this video, which recaps the aims and intentions and hopefully gives you some ideas when you come to write your own. Thank you very much for listening.